Okay, thank you, Alexandre, for your very intense presentation. Do we have some question, maybe? Just maybe to put the research of Alexandre into a more global framework. Why his work is important actually is because when I started my PhD research, I studied dengue geography within a city. So I was expecting actually dengue to be more in a, let's say, deprived area of Delhi where you have more mosquitoes, etc. Actually, it did not work at all. Dengue was everywhere in the city. Why? Is because the mosquito is biting during daytime. That means mobility of individual is very important. As an individual, I can be bitten not at workplace, but where I go during the day. This is individual level. At aggregated level, central places of Delhi can be infected because lots of people will move into this place and will transmit the disease locally despite a lower amount of mosquitoes. So it doesn't seem, but actually it's completely a paradigm shift. We are shifting from, let's say, structuralism, taking dengue as a revealers of urban disparities to something which is more complex, to the complexity of things. As an individual, I can be infected because of other individuals' behavior regarding mosquitoes. So we needed to integrate, this is a regularity that we could observe in Delhi, in Bangkok, in Vientiane right now, everywhere in the world actually, dengue is not matching the socio-economical disparities and the numbers of mosquitoes. This is not something very new in the emerging disease. This is not true for cholera, this is not true for malaria, it's very specific to emerging disease. As you know, dengue is spreading all over the world, but we are lacking such a data as Alexandre did. So what I did was something very static in place. I just mapped the geographical epidemics in Delhi. Now, Alex, what he did is very important because he shifted from something which is static to something which is in movements, which is very much required for dengue. But we don't have data for urban mobility. We have data about places, for example, movement of people between cities. We have no data for movement of people within cities. Most of all in Delhi, we have some data in Paris, for example, where we know where people are going to work, etc. Here in Delhi, we don't have. In Bangkok, we don't have. It's an important issue. So, as what it has been shown is that people are moving. They are going in the park, for example, in afternoon. The mosquito bite during 6 or 8 o'clock, for example. So people might be infected in this area. For people who are managing as you might know right now, actually, we are doing some mosquito trap in Delhi. MCT is putting something like 250 mosquito trap to see the impact on mosquito population. The problem in the city of 20 million inhabitants, you can put this mosquito trap everywhere. So here, at least we can say, okay, this is where the people are when the mosquito is biting. So again, it's a tremendous effort. I mean, I want to underline the fact that Alex really did this work alone. This is something which is very new in urban studies, I would say. I mean, I don't know how long it took you. I mean, it's quite, I mean, it could be 2 PhD in one, actually. So once again, I would like to congratulate you for this huge amount of work, and maybe we have some question. Yeah, Marie.
Thanks a lot, Alexandre, for this presentation that was pretty accessible. I have 2 questions indeed. My first would be, I like your idea about how you have data sets that are incomplete and how you could match and complement with other methods because you know what kind of data are missing or what kind of population are missing from this online data set, and you don't take it for granted. You try to correlate it with other kind of data. But then my question would be the online data that were available at the time you did your PhD for Delhi. I'm sure they have tremendously evolved in the past years because the technology has changed and because also Facebook, for instance, has also changed the way they are collecting data. You don't need to be active on Facebook today to collect mobility data, so I'm sure it would change a lot if you were doing it today. I would like to know if you are working today on the new ways data are silently collected through mobile phones, for instance, in developing cities. So what would be your idea today if you had to do the same study with the new kind of data that are emerging from digital technologies in a city like Delhi? And then my second question would be that with Twitter or Facebook, you are only using geolocalization data. And another idea to qualify the kind of mobility that is happening would be to cross mobility data with content, meaning that these media are producing content and precise content. I mean words that are qualifying the kind of mobility you are doing today. And then my question would be, is it technically possible to cross mobility data that are produced on Twitter or Facebook with content data? Meaning the kind of mobility that interests you, can you cross-check with specific keywords or words that are used inside the media itself? Or is it completely disconnected? Like, is it technically feasible to cross this?
Okay. So, for your first question, okay, it's true that right now, with smartphones everywhere, like leaks, so everybody knows that a lot of data are produced. But the main problem is that I'm not working for Facebook, I'm not working for Google. I just try to have access to this data, but it's just a sample, and then so basically, I mean, like right now everybody use WhatsApp, they share location, etc. So who has this information? It's not the researcher. This is Facebook, Google, etc. that have this information. So basically, they could do the same studies, but I think they use it for or something else. So right now, also, like after Cambridge Analytica, it was even more difficult to access to the Facebook aggregated data. It's not even like individual data, because I have to withdraw all my algorithm, etc. They have to control your what are you doing, etc. So the main stuff is that right now, I will say that it's even more difficult to have data. There is a lot of data, but people keep that as their petrol, like. So basically, we need to, if we can't access this freely, like we need to, if we want to have this kind of data, like let's say WhatsApp, even Uber can be interesting, but we need to have some partnership with this major actor from internet. So it's not that easy actually. Basically, my PhD was done, like I think it was the Far West, like it was okay, let's get everything. And right now it's more complicated to have this. But yeah, if you look at Google, what Google have on you, it's terrible. Like there's a lot of articles of this. They find it's terrible. I mean, it depends of the angle. Like if you, according to the privacy, it's very wow. But according to the research, it could be interesting. But you need to have this balance. And also for your question, if I use the context of the text, I mean, for the message sent as to characterize the mobility. I mean, it's quite complicated. Technically, it would have been, okay, what are the odds that people send a located message saying, I'm on the bus, or I'm at home only, maybe, some people try to do that. But the issue is that they collect all the tweets without any location, and they try after that to say, okay, which location is it according to some kind of text analysis. But sometimes the main problem with also this kind of social network is that Twitter, for instance, is very sarcastic. So you cannot fake information on the text. Also, I was thinking, some people ask me also, why don't you use the hashtag Dengue? Because first, when I collect this data, okay, as Olivier said, I was on my computer, so I don't have any spaces to collect the messages. It was just something like that. And after that, it was also complicated to analyze. And also, I don't think it's very relevant. Like for the dengue, I prefer to have Google Trend or to have like the surveillance system of India. I think it's better. But to qualify to make a link between the text and the location of the messages. Well, but in Delhi there is not that much people that use Twitter, so it will like maybe 5% of them who might describe what they are doing in their messages. So I don't think it's fun. It could be interesting to check, but yes, but with Facebook again, Twitter is a public platform by default. Facebook is a private platform. Only your friend could access this, or Facebook, or if you choose to make the data public. When you do a check-in, the data will be public, but your name won't appear. But your friend will know that you have seen a check-in. So this is not the same business model, or this is not the same social network. WhatsApp, it's private, so basically we can't use it except, we can't have this data except Facebook, because WhatsApp belongs to Facebook. So it's,
Okay, do we have more questions? Yes.
Okay, so I was, again, like that's a really great framework, and especially as data becomes more available, this is actually putting the groundwork for something that can process it. So I was curious, I am a little confused about what data was generated through the field data you collected, and how much of it was like thresholds that you had set by like some experience. So, for example, in some of the models when you were generating the synthetic activity model, right? Like, so like the percentages, were those generated from the data, or was it like a threshold where you were sort of guessing that 75% of the people from home will go to a cinema and then not go back? So that was one thing. But also generally, did you have like some error bounds on your estimates? So for in the later, like have you sort of done what we call like a sensitivity analysis or something like that? So yeah.
So for your first question, I did, okay, basically you want to have more information about this. Okay, how I can estimate that people go from one place to another according to this, if it works, or according to this, let's say. Basically, for people, I just have some, for everybody, I will get some data. This could be from let's say it's from Twitter. I will just have some information about the day of visit, some hours stuff. I will define this activity to be mainly fixed. Then I will put it there, and then I will add some flexible activities according to a probability. For instance, okay, let's say it's from the field. People tell me, okay, I go to the market one time every month. So these places will be visited by this person, okay, at least during 1 week, and also during 1 day. So the stuff is that, okay, which day it will be visited, etc. So for this, I will use just I will draw some random days, or I will affect this in this place. If I know information, if the person tell me it's on Wednesday, then it will be on Wednesday, etc. At some times. Then I can fill all the gap, and from this, okay, it's not okay. Let's say this one. So from this, I can have something like that. So this one is the synthetic agenda, but still, like you can see, okay, a lot of people are at home, okay, during the night, and okay, there is some different among this person. Some of them will go to the office in red. Some of them will go to the other places. So basically, at each hours, I just look at what is the share of people that goes from home to another location, and that's how I can have this. According to the time of the day, etc., it will be different, but still, like. So basically, I have some episodic data. I draw some information, and then I can have this. And your other question was the error. Do I do some sensitive analysis? Basically, I did, but it's not there. I try to compare. Okay, but basically, I did some analysis, but the idea was to compare the global activity frequentation attendance with the resulting agenda, just to pick up the best methodology. And basically, this one gives better results, but still, like it's not accurate at all. It's not totally perfect, and there is a lot of bias in this data. So it won't be accurate. To be honest, it will just be close to the reality, but it's very difficult to have a standard error. So I will say that it's better than nothing, but it's very difficult. At least it's credible. Like people, okay, they sleep at their place during the night, they go to work during the day. It's very close statistically to the data we have, but the data that we have, it's a bit, okay, it's a lot of data, but still it's not, we don't know if it's accurate or not. Like if you compare Twitter and Facebook, for instance, where is it here? You have, ça marche plus. Okay, but it used to work. Okay, okay, basically you don't have the same density of population according to the time in Bangkok. It depends. Basically, the result will depend of the sources that you use. So I don't know if Facebook is more accurate than Twitter. I guess it must be, but I'm not sure. So it's still.
Just to answer your question, actually, there is some people who did this work trying to correlate the Facebook users with Twitters and mobile phone data in Barcelona.
Yeah, but it was.
And it was quite matching, actually. So in a city like Delhi, you said that it's different a bit, but...
I think with Facebook would not Twitter, I don't think in Delhi it works. In Bangkok,
Yeah.
I don't know, but basically you're right, you should use some kind of... If you have some CDR, some mobile phone data, then it could be interesting to have a... Because it's more pervasive, like most of people have this kind of device.
Pato?
Hi, Alex. This is, I'm still trying to understand how the model actually works in predicting, let's say, when the next. So your last, yes, that's right. So the mosquito population is obtained separately.
Yeah.
The mosquito population is obtained like what Oliver is now doing through a separate survey of where mosquitoes are concentrated or things of that sort. Because I mean, from Oliver's survey, it finds that the density of mosquitoes is very variable across Delhi. I don't know what the situation in Bangkok is. So there would be like, to my mind, there is a mosquito density, then there is a people density, and then there is a people mobility.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Basically, the mosquitoes, okay, the population of mosquitoes will depend of data from the literature that are obtained from the, okay. With the environment model, we will have, okay, let's say in each cell we have a percentage of, let's say, breeding sites, like plain water for the mosquitoes. The mosquito will therefore need this. It will also need some nectars, like from flowers, to have some food. And the woman mosquitoes will need to have some human to get some blood for the reproduction cycle. So basically, the mosquito will need both environment and human. So it's not that separated. It's not that all the models rely on each other. Like the environment model will say, okay, according to the temperature, to the meteor, also to the population density, we will be more likely to find more breeding sites that will influence the population of the mosquitoes. You can also in the model, if you want, like say, okay, there is some policy that remove all the water, then you can do some kind of analysis like this. But the mosquito, we then rely on the environment plus on the human mobilities, on the presence of human people. So everything is linked actually, but it's a bit complicated.
So how does the model then work? For example, you have the mosquito thing coming from the environment.
Yeah.
And let us take just two types of spaces, closed spaces and open spaces, so parks and offices. So a certain proportion of people will go to a park in the morning. That place has a certain density of mosquitoes based on the environment. So there will be a certain probability that that person will get infected by mosquito. And that person has other travel patterns, and at which point in time you're basically going to see whether even when the other person travels somewhere else, that person also needs to be in the open because the mosquito needs to be able to bite that person and bite somebody else, right? For the transmission to happen. So is that how that stuff works, in the sense that, for example, when somebody is in an office, is the probability of infection then zero?
No, okay, so this is, you're right basically. What we are doing is that we are using some probability of biting, but it's according to the literature, and then because it's quite difficult to have this
observation. You don't have for the mosquito here. It's a synthetic population. It's not based on observation.
Yeah.
The same thing for the biting rates.
But you are definitely right. Like for instance, in some mall in Bangkok, when there is AC, etc., there is very less mosquitoes. That's why it's important to take into account this. For now, we don't know the probability. Basically, in the mall, we can say in the model, okay, let's try it with a probability of that there is a mosquito, let's say it's 50%, let's try it with 20%, let's try it with 10%. Basically, we can explore all these things because we don't have all the information. For instance, some places, let's say here in the CSH, there is a lot of people that had dengue like a few years back at the school. So maybe right now people did some, I don't know, some work, and then there is no more stagnating water or something like that. So basically, what we can do with this is that, okay, it's not the reality. It has to be a laboratory. Then we can try different threshold, different probability of transmission, yeah, because for instance, like a lot of people are asymptomatic, for instance. That means like people, they have dengue, but they don't have any symptoms. So this, how can we do? Like, okay, let's say you have if you are bitten by a mosquito, you have 80% of chance to don't have any symptoms. Is it true for everybody, or just like for some? If it's the same rate for everybody, etc. This we don't know. So basically, the idea is just to make like a virtual laboratory and to try a lot of hypotheses, and then that's why also I took into account in my mobility model all these kind of places like the mall, the school, etc. Then you can say, okay, in that place you can change the threshold of the probability to get dengue, or to have mosquitoes. Then
If you were to use this model, let's say in Bangkok, where you have some, to in some sense predict what would be the pattern of dengue sometime when outbreaks sort of happen, is that possible? I mean, can you sort of, let's assume your Twitter population is representative of the mobility pattern of the geography which you find out. Is this possible to then predict infection rates, engagements using these kinds of models?
What I will say is that for now, before predicting, okay, let's understand how it works. Then, okay, we can say we can predict this. Of course, this can be used for prediction, but is this prediction will be accurate? Basically, this we don't know. So basically, the first step is that to understand the infection rate, etc., as you said, to understand where people goes, and then okay, we can see there is for instance, if I come back to this, if it worked, if I come back to this diapo, we can say that if there is a lot of people that are infected in an area, and if I know that this area is very well connected to another one, we can say that the next area is likely to have dengue. But
I can say maybe the idea is not to predict the upcoming epidemics. It would be to really understand what structures epidemics. Because you know, when you have an epidemic of dengue in 2008, you capture with observation. You capture only one line. What happened in 2008 in this context? So I did, for example, a very toy model simulation integrated based on, it's a toy model based on nothing, and I could see that with the same parameters at the beginning of the epidemic, at the end, we have completely different epidemics. Because we have, you know, the butterfly effect. A small change at the beginning of the simulation will completely impact what happened at the end. So the idea is not to predict, but to go back on what happened in 2008, 2009, 2010, for example, epidemic, run 200 simulation and see what's happened in the most of the time, 90%. Once we calibrate the model, once we can reproduce what we observed, we can test some scenario, saying, okay, this is what happened if, for example, we are acting in central places for dengue, if we are eradicating mosquitoes by 80% in central places, versus eradicating mosquitoes in the suburbs. Does it add an impact on the mosquitoes? So it's ready to simulate the complexity to grasp what is the core of epidemic.
Yeah, but Olivier, I'm trying to, if you're going to put on that route, which is basically like bootstrapping and calibrating the model, what are the calibration parameters here? Which are the parameters? Infection rates is one of them. But what are the other parameters that you are actually calibrating in this model?
I have to read again the PhD of Sunsaku Manila. I don't remember properly, but she used a lot of things. Like there is also even like a death rate of mosquitoes. Like some, according to the mosquito, will die at some point. If they are outside, if they are inside, the death rate won't be the same. So there is a lot of parameters, and it's according.
More than 200, let's say. In a mosquito model, there are more than 200. Because biting rate depends on temperature. For example, dengue mosquito might bite at 20 degrees once, at 25 it would bite 3 times. So a small change in temperature will impact considerably the mosquito behavior and the dynamic of infection. For mobility pattern, what you do is as well it's the same thing. You have several, let's say, integration. That's why the model is decoupled in 3 parts. They're being done by 3 students because it's quite complex actually. So yeah. So
I wish we could predict, but. Okay, first it's better to be cautious about this, because a lot of people say, yeah, I can predict this. I've seen some presentation, people will predict where will be dengue in 2050.
I mean, even, I'll stop, because even from Olivia said, even if you show from your model that there are many possibilities coming out of very small changes, then that is an implication that public health policy needs to be citywide, that you cannot, because if you could predict, then you could say, okay, it doesn't matter, I will have some resources like a mobile unit and I will just go and serve only those places which are going to get affected, right? But if that is not going to be the case, as you said, if small changes can change things very differently, then your public health policy therefore needs to be a very different policy as compared to if it is something that is a predictable kind of structure. So even if your model shows that it is difficult to predict for these kinds of reasons, that would also have interesting policy connotations into how that structure is put together. So it would be nice to illustrate.
Not true. In my opinion, we have to model the complexity to grasp what is structural. In Delhi, we have some clue. What is structural is actually the geography of the mosquito during winters. The mosquito is not everywhere. It's only located in the urban heat island. So with this kind of simulation, we can say, okay, instead of acting during epidemic, where, to be honest, whatever we do, it won't change. Once the epidemic starts, it's too late. What if we are focusing our efforts during winters, where we have these environmental niches? So with this kind of things, we can simulate what is the impact and do things long term. So the complexity is needed. I would say we have to go back to what structures an epidemic. So it's a kind of, again, we go back to a whole paradigm, but we have to do that. Yes, Bruno.
Thank you, Alexandre. I'm really impressed with the work you have done on data. It's really, really impressive. I see months of work behind this. So thank you once again. I have 2 small questions. The first one is you identify 5 groups of mobility. I would like to know how and what do they correspond to some typical agenda. So technically, how you identified these 5 groups. And the second question is, do this group, each group is, can we assign a risk factor? Because this is also, you have structural effect, and maybe some typical agenda or group are more risky. And can we say, for example, the more you travel, the more you are risky? So could you describe this group and this?
Okay, so basically I've done this, I've used 4 parameters for Twitter users. I have calculated for everybody the mean trip would be like the distance between 2 consecutive tweets. Then the radius of gyration, which is like a parameter of dispersion, like okay, something like the mean distance, but a bit different. It's using physics. So from the home, the number of places or number of locations that people visit, and the number of activities. So from this, I have this information for everybody. Then I did a K-means, like this is a classification algorithm, and then I've chosen 5 classes because of the optimization of the elbow. So. And from this, I have some kind of I have some description areas, description things. Let's say, for instance, people from the group 1 will try to move from move from longer distances and in a more spread in the city than people from the group 2, for instance. And if we spatialize the place where those people stay, we just see that, okay, these people stay mostly on the peripheric areas. It's also basically, it's probably true that the more you visit location, etc., the more you are likely to get dengue. But it's not sure. Because it depends on the location you visit, it depends on a lot of things, a lot of parameters, and that's why we are making some models. For instance, you just need to go outside to get dengue, basically. It's not necessary to go to the... It's not, for instance, you can visit a lot of places and be lucky because, I don't know, you have a plant or something like that, and then you don't have dengue. But sometimes, okay, you just go outside and poof, you have it randomly. So for sure, the more you visit location, the more you are likely to have the dengue, but it needs to be proved, actually.
My first question, I wanted to have more flesh behind radius of duration or number of places. You cannot give in simple words. Typical group 1 is typically, I don't know, I don't know.
No, this is just about
you didn't try to give more...
No, basically, I don't have any information on the Twitter users. I just have the mobility pattern, the mobility information, which is like distance-wise or activity places. So from this, I can just say that, okay, people that stay there are more likely to belong to this group, and they are more likely to travel on the long distances. But I don't know if it's male or if it's female, etc. But what we can do is that according to the kind of, according to the main activity that people do, it's possible, for instance, if a lot of people send some tweets in the universities, they are likely to be students. So we can do this kind of, characterization of the people according to the main activity that people visit. So if they go to the school, they might be young people, etc. But we don't have that much information.
I'm sorry that I was late, but what I would have gathered. So, is design play a vital role? When we design, because the horticulture also breeds mosquitoes, the coloring also breeds mosquitoes. The sanitation is also there, and how far the designing of urban spaces could nullify or contain the dengue process.
Basically, the design of urban spaces, it will impact the movement of the mosquitoes. If you have open area, etc., the mosquito could spread more easily. If there is some borders, etc., the mosquito won't move that much. If the mosquito is located, like let's say, in a very dense area, a lot of population, this mosquito won't need to go that far away because it will find a lot of people to take the blood on. So, and also, yes,
Design is important.
Huh?
Design is important.
Of course, yeah. So we need to have that's why we also have a lot of information about the, I don't show it there, but we have all lot of the buildings, areas in Delhi, etc. Then how the public space is designed will infect the mosquitoes, or etc.
Thank you. It was quite insightful, and I'm not from the discipline, so I'm just trying to grasp a lot of technicalities of it. But my question is very simply the question of method, since your presentation is also on how online data can be useful. So, and since you have also collected data in other ways, so those smaller sample size, but in Mali and Agar, talking to people, I think 99 people, if I'm right. So, I was just wondering, have you find any, did you find any discrepancies between the data that you have managed to collect on digital platforms and vis-a-vis the data that you have collected talking to people, and how then would you reflect on the merit or maybe even limitations of the big data or the kind of data that you're getting on the digital platform?
Yeah, but basically I think in both cases there is the important thing is the social desirability. Like if you ask people questions from people from the field, but okay, they will tell you some information, but you are not sure that it's true because okay, I want to be, yes, I go to the mall, etc. Or no, I have nothing. People could also give some not some bias in their answer. Also, people can forget the places they have visited. It's mostly the same with Twitter. People, we tend to over-send messages, to send a lot of messages in fancy places, let's say. For instance, in Bangkok, a lot of people send messages in the mall because, I don't know, because they are in the mall, but they want to show to other people that they are here. So there is mostly the same kind of biases. But what is interesting when you are in the field is that you have more information about you have direct information about the person that you interview. And from that, it's at least you know the gender, you know the you know the resource level, etc. So this is very useful because mobility can be. Here I studied mobility in a quantitative way. It could also be studied in a qualitative way. What makes people move from which place? Why do people go there? What is the why people stay in that place and how it will impact the mobility, etc. So there is a lot of way to analyze the mobility. Here it's purely quantitative, but and of course there is some bias in every kind of data. Is a good answer? I answered your question?
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Do we have more questions? Oh, yes.
One quick thing. I was thinking about the way people use phones, right? So when I'm outdoors, it's difficult to read a screen because of sun and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe less likely to tweet.
Yeah.
I don't tweet, so I'm not really sure it's the right way. Now and I'm just therefore wondering whether the data might be biased when you're looking at tweets to places which are indoors. And therefore when you're in a park you don't tweet and therefore you don't get caught. I mean you're not come up in the system. And therefore in some senses you are undercounting people in open spaces. If you are using Twitter or any of these like things which require you to interface with a mobile device as compared to something else. I mean, is there any?
Yeah, of course. Like for instance, the GPS accuracy, it depends on if you are outside or inside. So sometimes it's not accurate at all. I mean, like you could go to 50, 200 meters, of points could be changed a lot. Also, you don't. It's true, like you won't tweet the same way if you are in the park or if you. Basically, it could be represented as this. Let's say this person visits 4 places. But in fact, maybe he stayed there as well. This I don't know. Because he didn't send any tweet from this place. Maybe he visited this place. But I have no information about this. My main hypothesis is that, okay, I downloaded data for 1.5 years. So, okay, it's long enough. We can say that maybe it's a bit representative of maybe the virtual activity spaces, so the different places this person visited. The different places where he let some tweets is likely to be close to the real places that the person visits. But it's not sure, we don't have any information about this. So yeah, there is a lot of bias, and then the GPS, that's what you say when you are inside
I mean, I can just, maybe just me, I can just see a screen better when I'm inside here, right?
Ah, okay, that's okay.
When I'm outside, especially in a sunny
Okay.
environment, then it's just difficult for me to read and type and send, so I don't interface.
Mine, yes.
Yeah, but then there is a big difference between silent data and intentional data. Tweet is an intentional data, and then with Google Maps, I can imagine that you don't need to ask for the information on your point of interest in order to Google to get your geolocalization. So it means that Google Maps will collect silent data from you. So that's a very big difference between a tweet and
active and passive.
Active and passive kind of data. So if you think about passive kind of data that are non-intentional from the users, there I can imagine that today, with just the fact that you had this mobile phone in your pocket and that it's on, then you have all the Google Maps data that are generated and that you can have access to. So maybe Twitter is limited in a way because you need to communicate and to talk about the place where you go. But then the GPRS data from Google Maps are more and more accurate in terms of mobility pattern.
Oh, of course.
But then, what can you access precisely?
But here it's just so this is the point of interest. This is just access to the database. Like I'm just asking, okay, just Google, please, okay, give me. I'm looking in this area up, and I want all the points that you have of any categories. So this is what I get. It's just there is all the database of Google to make my my land use of Bangkok to mix it with the activity space of the person to okay, say this location is a park or something like that. But it's true, like for me, I'm using on my work only active data on mobility. For me, the Google data, it's not for mobility, it's just for the land use characterization. But it's no, but you're right. Like most of the data that we create are passive data we don't even know. Every time you send an email, there is a lot of information on it. Every time you send a tweet, for instance, there is how many is it? You have something like 80 or something like that, different line where it say okay, the ID, etc. A lot of information everywhere. And the main problem, the main issue is that you don't even know. And these data are used by Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, or whatever, even Uber, for their own benefit, actually. We don't have access to this kind of data, or except if we make some partnership with this company. But then, okay, it's a possibility.
Maybe Marie, you can interact, because Marie knows a lot, with a huge PhD on that. How these big data are used actually in commercial purpose and how they are not used for public health purpose actually. So there's a lot of data that are gathered passively, actively, etc. They're used for their own interest, of course, and researchers like us or publicans like us doesn't get access to that data. But we are signing an agreement right now with one of the GAFA to get this passive surveillance, that's passive data. But honestly, I'm not sure, researcher, because we are a small team, 2-3 researchers, I'm not sure we will be able to manipulate such data. Because we have some data, we have 1 million data for Delhi, plus 100 kilometers. We want to sample them 6 times a day. So that's 6 million lines multiplied by 15 days. You imagine the kind of work it represents only. So I think that's why, of course, there is a huge gap in methodology between passive and active. The work Alex did is very interesting in that sense that he manipulated all this data. Very few people are unlinked this kind of data and understand what are the limitations, etc. So it was started 4 or 5 years back. Of course, now we have more and more data. I'm not sure it will be even more accurate, but it would be quite interesting to explore that. I would like Alexandre to work on that, but he's taking another way. Very, very interesting as well. But I think his work is very interesting in that sense, actually, and will remain as a base of work for other researchers to come working on dengue. Do we have more questions? Yes.
Hello, I'm Ravinder Singh, I'm technology expert. Your presentation is very good, but the thing is, this mosquito is very, very smart. Even if there is one mosquito in a room, it will bite you. So what is important is that, what is the critical mass, because one single bite will not, create, dengue, it has to be some, you can say, transmission of disease, So what is the, you can say, critical, density of mosquitoes, That is very critical. If some area has, you can say high density, then it will be very, very spreading very, very fast. So 2-3 years back, there was very big, epidemic kind of thing. More than 20% people were infected in Delhi, but we were reporting only 1% or may not be even that. So reporting is also very important. People, don't report. So these things are also very important. Thank you.
Mosquito population.
As we said before, the density of mosquito, okay, this depends of the temperature, of how many people there is, etc. So basically, we just have to model some. What can I say? Yeah, we can. What do you mean that the critical density of mosquitoes? But maybe you can reply this one.
I'm not sure it matters a lot.
Yeah.
Because they showed that mosquitoes, normally with malaria we have actually correlation between population density of mosquitoes and incidence of malaria.
Mosquitoes, people having, you can say, shops and places, where people are also there. Density of mosquitoes and high density of people at some place, public places.
Yeah, and this mosquito is smart because, as well as going to bite 3 or 4 persons in a day. Malaria mosquito will bite once, twice maybe. So, that means if it's an infected mosquitoes, it will transmit the virus 4 times. So it's as well very important here. But all the studies show that, as we did in Delhi, we study, for example, the mosquito index in houses. We could see actually that in deprived area, 10% of houses were control positive for mosquito. Whereas in South Delhi, it was 3-4% mosquitoes, percentage of houses control positive. Despite that, we had the same numbers of dengue incidents in both area, and the less affected area were the peripheral one, where the mosquito density was medium, but the mobility index was very low. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alexandre, and thank you.